Hi, welcome to this week's episode of Spirit Coffee Talk. We dive in talking all things spirit with myself, Lisa Richmond, an intuitive medium, and then my fellow mediums, Ginette Byro and Elyse Cathray. We're all involved with Avalon Spirit, and we meet every Friday and chat about everything spirit. So this week, we dive into some of the earth energies going on right now, some of the feels all around British Columbia and Alberta, and how we're all being affected in different ways, and how it can show up with fear, and how to move out of that without putting too much pressure on yourself. So I really hope you enjoyed this week. We sure dove in and talked about some things that were really important to us. So feel free to subscribe and like and share and all the goodies, and just let us know what you think. So I hope you enjoyed this week, and we'll see you again next week. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Spirit Coffee Talk. We have myself, Lisa Richmond. We have Elyse Cathray and Ginette Byro. We come every Friday, show up and have a little coffee and talk all things spirit and life and just whatever is going on. So I hope you enjoy this week's version of Spirit Coffee Talk. How's everyone doing?
Oh, good. I could use about 6 of these today, to tell you the truth. I went to bed last night at 7.
Oh
I
my God.
went to bed, in bed, not just like I'm gonna have a nap, but I went in bed at 7 and didn't wake up again until my alarm went off this morning at 7:30.
Oh my gosh.
And I feel like I could still sleep. So there's something really demanding or energetically draining going on. And I know there's a lot of ways we could look at it, but I'm definitely feeling it, which is why I would gladly
Mhm.
entertain 6 or
Cups of
60 coffee.
coffee. Mm-hmm.
That if I could give you any advice, it's don't stop retrieving.
Don't stop retrieving. Hold on to the feeling.
Or don't, because these feelings are,
Actually, yeah. Yeah, these
but
feelings
don't stop
are
retrieving.
I know. Um, yeah. What do you guys feel is like Earth seems like a really big thing to me, Earth energies right now. Um,
Earth energies is like the biggest thing right now.
You've been really feeling and being caught in a lot of the Earth stuff going on. Like, why don't you share with everybody what's
Well,
what
I
the
had
last
a
few days
pretty
have been?
crazy couple days.
Yeah.
And I know that I'm not unique. I know there's a lot of people deeply affected by this right now, but like BC, or province, is on fire. Like there's just fires everywhere. And I'm in Vernon right now. I'm in the Okanagan, and just around my area, there's been like 4 fires. And like it's scary because I've never sat on my deck before and seen open flames on the side of a mountain from my house before. And being on alert for evacuation a couple times, and then my family and I, we decided, we're like, let's just go camping. Let's get out of this area and let's just go camping last minute. It'll be fun. I've got 4 kids, but three little ones at home right now. And let's just randomly pack up the kids, the dogs, and just go on a total random camping trip today. So first of all, it's not a good idea. Don't want to ever plan it. So then we drive around, we find this like total random place on the side of the road, and normally it would be beautiful, but this sounds a little crazy even. We were like backing up to try to like get into our space, and this huge bug comes flying at the back of the camera, the backup, like right at the camera, and Chad's like, "Whoa!" My husband's like, "What?" And literally that was the energy of the whole place. The bugs were flying at us like, "Get out, get out, get out." Like they were like, "Get out." Honestly, the whole energy the whole time we were there was, "Get out of here. This is not a good idea." And I think it was a combination of the craziness within the energy of the forest and stuff like that. It was almost like we were imposters. But then I sat in meditation that night and I started channeling, and the wind started picking up. And for anyone who doesn't know, I can deeply connect with more of like an earth empath as well. So I can really tune in and hear a lot of messages that come through wind and the trees and stuff and water. But anyway, the wind picks up, and I was like, I'm like, she's talking to me. So my husband was there. I'm like, you got to hear this. Like, I want you to hear this. And she was talking about how it's her turn. She's like, COVID came through last year, and it was about uprooting and changing, and the ascension process for Earth. But it like really got taken over with human energy. And so the Earth is like, there has not been like a death and rebirth. The ascension of Earth has to happen, and it's not happening in the hands of you guys. So it's my turn, is what her words were. It's my turn. And so she's like, and here I go. And the wind starts picking up, and there's like crazy storm. And I'm like, let's just listen. I'm writing it down. And she talked about how the change of direction, and then the fires are going to continue. And 2021 is going to be known for a lot of earth uprooting, like massive floods, storms. The fires are going to continue, and earthquakes. And like, this isn't wonderful news, but I'm just writing it down. And it's about Earth going through such a transformation, and really like what fires do too. At least we were talking about this, is like clears the land in order for new life to grow. And Earth has hit its limit. She said, like, this is my limit. This is where I stop. And it's her turn for ascension. And so they showed me the Earth kind of cracking open in a vision, and inside was this like gold, like deep down was like this gold, almost like the heart of inner Earth. And it's like, that's where the energy is going to stay. Surface Earth, she's moving it around, and she's wanting to regenerate it so that that golden light can then permeate out like the rising of a phoenix kind of thing. And so going into that heart space for ourselves and connecting ourselves, if we needed to feel grounded in the crazy energies that are going on around us, which there are, a good way to ground yourself, not even like feet in the earth, like really ground yourself to the depths of the heart of Earth. So you can even visualize yourself connecting to this like golden light from inner Earth. And that's going to give you more power, because what's going on 3D around us, all around Earth right now, is chaos, is movement, it's destruction, and it's hard. People are all over the place. So I think almost like cocooning yourself energetically, keeping yourself, resting a lot, like using that, and then being on side with Mother Earth, if that makes sense. Like saying, okay, I got you. I understand what you're doing, and I'm going to feel deeply into this, and then almost like surrender to her heart in this. And I feel like that will help us gain a little bit of peace, maybe, with what's going on. Anyway, that was really long-winded, but
And something that's coming into mind too, so we've heard a lot of other people, and we probably have even talked about it here, is the idea of like how, as light workers, people tuned in, people that are ascending, this feels completely ungrounded, and it feels chaotic, and it feels like I don't even know what to do with myself. Like I was saying this morning, I was trying to, practice in my regular practices, and I couldn't even like get anywhere with it. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I've heard, and that I'm kind of being reminded of now, and what else is coming in, is back in December 2020, there was enough people on this planet during the solstice, the winter solstice, to really connect in and agree / connect energies to create ascension, right? To say like, okay, we're all in, like tag me in, I'm in. And I think what I'm getting right now is that we can't necessarily understand it, and we can't necessarily know where this is going or what's happening. And I know we've talked a lot, I think we talked last week about timelines and how everything is kind of wishy-washy, but this idea of what we can do, we've been tagged in, or we tagged ourselves in really in December of last year. Now is the time to use the energies, use the light within us to support her. So the vision that I'm getting is like you were saying, like connecting in through your heart and grounding that way. And I keep seeing, and I've heard other spiritual folks talk about this, like connecting in from the cosmos, light down through the heart, down into the ground. And like, just as we would give other humans energy, or other animals or beings energy, there's that energy exchange. That's part of our work right now, is supporting this like purging. this like deep sense of get it out. It's like,
and it gets messy before it gets good. Like we're in the turmoil a bit. It's mucky, right? And the scattered energy of the people around and stuff. Like we were talking before we pressed record. Got to stop doing that because there's a lot of good stuff that happens. But you know, there's people like running around really grumpy and really like in the blaming mode, right? It's not my fault. This person did this and this, you know, and like, to put it simply, I think that people are just out of alignment, right? They're out of their authentic self because they're feeling this uprooting. And especially for people who hate change, right? You can't really even pinpoint what is going on, but there's so much energetic change out there that it's stirring up this feeling of like not knowing and scatty, you know? And I think it's
also
hard.
people's triggers though.
Totally.
Right? Like people are angry because of the scatteredness, but it's also triggering stuff for them to see maybe what they could shift and change. But if they're not knowing that, then they're just reacting and pointing fingers. Anyways, carry on.
No, but and this is another thing is people who experience a lot of anxiety. Like I have a ton of compassion because that wasn't an issue for me really growing up. And over the last couple of years now, just with the movement of energy and understanding how someone who has a lot of like empathic abilities, I guess I really feel other people and the earth's energy and stuff, all the anxiety, right? And stopping and being like, okay, is this mine? Like what is the anxiety telling me? Like where's it? And so with the movement and the shifts and so much that's happening around us earth-wise and people-wise, because it's scatty, people's anxiety is through the roof right now. It really is. And not knowing where to place it. Because I feel like when anxiety is evoked, I think natural tendency generally is for people to place it, right? Oh, it's because of this, or it's, oh, and then there's a fixing. I don't want to feel the anxiety anymore. But it's just like, there's no fixing it right now because it's an energetic thing. And so surrendering into it is super hard, surrendering into anxiety, but it's everywhere. And I think it's driving people nuts. Have you guys had any experience with people that are very anxious in this energy and don't know where to place it?
Oh, yeah. Like many, many, many. Um, and I think it's because I would say that a lot of people actually have methods to deal with their stuff, right? Like, I think there's a lot more people right now that are like active in their health and wellness and their mental health. And so they have their tools of how they move through things. But I think what's pushing people so much right now is that their tools that they use aren't working the same because we're not able to implement the same templates we've had before. Before we had like, when this happens, do this, this, or this, and this helps. But it's like we're in such a radical change and a totally different frequency that the tools that we have aren't working, which is what's making people almost desperate, therefore lashing out or turning very introverted or numbing out or doing avoidance practices, whatever, tactics, methods, whatever.
Yeah.
That I think a lot of people are feeling the way they are because they don't know what to grab anymore, even beyond their own usual tools. Right? Like, I know some people who, for example, exercise and they're like, if I exercise and I exhaust my body to the point of like nothing, then that can usually like just help me simmer and then start again, start fresh. And I know some people like that's not even working for them too, right? So I think there's so many ways that it's pushing people beyond their limits. Yeah. And then to take that even further and speak to people that can really tune in, I know for myself, because I can only really speak for myself, but even trying to tune in isn't quite working the same. The best tune in I can do is to tune in to myself and my higher self versus tuning into spirit and the higher realms. Like I can tune in, but the answers aren't going to be always there right now because it can't be, because we're shifting on the planet, we're shifting in fourth dimension, we're shifting in fifth dimension. All of this is shifting in all the directions, right? Every which way. That to try and find where to find balance is like this massive teeter-totter on a boat in a storm on the ocean.
Totally. And
right?
Spirit's being like straight up with that, being like, there's absolutely no timeline that you can follow. Everything is variable. It could be one thing one day. And that's why you have to go in, right? Because you go in to normally get your answers with Spirit and feel that. And it's like, sorry, the information is not available at this time. It's like
Yeah.
the little spinning wheel on Netflix. It's like, I can't get anything, right? Seriously. So you have to go in and be like, all right, here we go.
Mhm.
But I think I really want to acknowledge people who are experiencing that. And like you said, Ginette, like nothing working, like you said, they're tools. And so numbing out or, like I think there's a lot of people who are feeling really low about themselves and that and being like, I'm not doing good enough. Right.
Mm.
So I just want to like acknowledge if anybody's watching this is this is happening and it's real and you're not alone.
Mhm.
It's happening everywhere in all capacities. So like give yourself a break
Mhm.
and give yourself compassion. And if you need to cocoon and just rest, cocoon and rest.
Mhm.
That's okay. That it's like you're good. You're good. Everybody's like
Okay.
doing their best and like take a second to acknowledge yourself and say like I'm doing my very best right now and I understand that what normally used to work isn't working and
Yeah.
I'm just going to take a step back and ask myself what I need now,
Mhm.
right? Practice or try in this like all if all the tools aren't working and the anxiety is still there and try to just put all of that to rest without judgment of self and ask yourself on a day to day, it's day to day,
Mhm.
what do I need today, what do I need today, and go in. And if
That's
it's a cup of coffee and a nap, it's a cup of coffee and a nap, right? If it's a walk, it's a walk. If it's Netflix, then it's Netflix, right? Like having patience for yourself because it is wild out there right now.
Mhm.
I agree. Totally. How is it where you are, Elyse?
Yeah, so I mean, we're not, and it's strange because it's been very hot here, and yet I don't know of any fires in Alberta. If they are, they're small. But we've not been as hot as BC, but we've been record hot for here. And we're kind of in this weird space of like that's not happening. There's a lot politically happening in Alberta right now.
Yeah, there is.
There's a lot healthcare wise that's happening right now, especially where I'm living in the healthcare system. There's a lot of really challenging things happen and a lot of polarities and a lot of anger and frustration and it's a lot. And I think when I look at the energies and especially how I've been feeling, it can almost make you feel, and not to say that sometimes we aren't mentally unwell, but it can make you feel mentally unwell because one day you're like, okay, waking up feeling pretty good today, like gonna do this, that, have a busy day, whatever, and you feel like grounded and okay, not necessarily great, but just like I can get through the day.
Yeah.
And then I had a day on Tuesday where I was like, I could not even function. I was in tears all day. I was anxious. I was worrying about things that I was like, and I could logically separate from it and be like, Kaylee's, if this was all true, it's completely outside of your control. So, like, what can you do to let that go? Because nothing that you do or think about here is going to help you or help this situation. And B, you know, that everything is changing and like even the things that I was worrying about were going completely against intuitively what I felt. So it was this push pull and I could not ground myself the entire day. And Wednesday I wake up and I feel like, I'm actually okay today. Truck along, do my work, la la la, everything's fine. And it's been that up and down, up and down. And every day, as you were saying, is different. And I think that for a lot of folks, whether you're, would define yourself as a spiritual person or define yourself as somebody who connects into the energies or not, it's this up and down that feels like you like the thing I keep seeing in my mind is like when you hit a bump in the road and you kind of like bounce off your seat and then it's like that up and down, or like that turbulence feeling of, okay, now you're bracing for the next thing. And so for me, I've been this week trying to practice like, okay, am I feeling okay today? Okay, I'm going to really allow that. Like, don't try not to search for the next thing because it might be coming. And right now it is a lot of up and down. So it probably will come, but allow myself to be where I'm at when I'm feeling okay.
Mhm.
And then trying to find ways to comfort and nourish, not necessarily change or fix or figure out when things don't feel okay, but like, how can I just embody and be in it and nourish myself through it and know that like I don't necessarily have the control that I would like over this experience right now. And yeah, I think, you know, it's been really hard. And one of the things that's been interesting for me now, kind of, it's always funny, like hindsight's 2020, right? Looking back, there were certain pieces of guidance that I was getting earlier in the month around certain opportunities that were coming my way that were going to take away a lot of my time and seemingly felt really good. And like, it was like everything inside of me was screaming, keep space in your life. Do not overcommit yourself. Do not take on too much. If you do that, it is going to be very hard for you. And it was like, I felt like my heart was screaming at me.
Wow.
Space, rest, heal, do whatever you need to do. And healing doesn't necessarily mean doing all the things. Healing can be cocooning yourself on the couch with a blanket, maybe not when it's 45 degrees, but you know, cocooning yourself, so whatever way feels good for you, and holding that which is uncomfortable and just like loving it. Because the thing too that I think we need to remember, and Lisa, you were talking about this earlier, we're resisting those feelings so much. But the thing we need to remember is that resistance and pushing something away does not change it. It's through the acceptance.
It actually amplifies it.
It does. It's through the acceptance. If, you know, I'm going to push against something, is it gonna, if I push against this wall, is it going to move? No. But if I soften away and allow myself, that changes the experience with it. So it's that like holding
a wave.
Space. Yeah.
Resisting to the wave, it can actually be a beautiful thing carrying you through, right? But trying to resist a wave, have you ever tried to resist a wave? It's like, it's not going to work, right? And it's probably going to be painful and hard, and it's never going to work, right?
That's why I don't go in the ocean.
It's a simplistic example, but truthfully, you know, I love that you said that. Like, well, I acknowledged how much that is like so truthful, but the whole concept of saying, don't overcommit because it will be hard, because we don't realize why. Well, no, but if I do this and take this on and do this and then fix and help and blah, 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 there's like a sense of like that makes, at least for me personally, makes me feel like worthy, right? Like I'm doing good then, committing. I don't want to let others down, but I also really, maybe in my own ego, want to do good. I want to do good for people. I want to do more. But then I'm not acknowledging that, hold on, Lisa, you're not listening to keep space. That's not all. Like, think about how much energy is being actually taken up by what is going on our planet. Like, we're not even taking that into consideration of how much we are taking that energy on. And so if we're like physically filling up our schedule, there's no room left to even breathe.
And I gotta say too, so since we started this call, I had one of my guides come in and has been telling me things along the way. And so I was like,
can tell. Yeah.
Piece it together for me. I'm like, I'll share, but like, give me all the pieces. And so we're innately already talking about a lot of what they're saying. And the thing that they wanted to emphasize is like, we're just about at this tipping point. Like, you know, that whole thing of like a tipping point, a certain amount of things have to happen or occur or even groupthink or whatever to create a tipping point in which change happens, right? So right now we're at one of the strongest points just before the tipping point. So everything is at its extreme. I feel like there's like this much more to go. So there's a bit more to land, and this much could mean a month or two in human timeline, right? It's not like just today, although it could be today. That's the thing, right? But it could be a couple months. But we're right at this tipping point where we will shift and change, but this tipping point means the narrative of fear is so strong and it's going to get stronger. So we have to come back to kind of getting underneath the fear responses to all of the things on all the levels. And it doesn't mean like, because, you know, some people would be like, well, fear is a natural response. And it's like, yes, it is. And absolutely, if you're standing in front of a car that's coming at you and fear comes in, it's saying jump, because that's the best thing, is to get out of the way. But I'm talking about getting under like the chronic fear that holds us back from doing things, from thinking critically, from making decisions, from doing the next best thing, right? Like get under the fear to try to eradicate the fear narrative because it's really strong and it's getting more potent being at this point of a tipping
How
point.
would somebody do that? This is beautiful, but like, how can you simplify eradicating the fear narrative for somebody?
So it would be someone taking that moment to recognize what is causing them a fear, right? Like, say, we'll just use forest fires, okay? So, say there are fires in the community, they can't control the fire, they are obviously not lighting fires themselves, right? So, that is a fear that is sitting there. So, to get under the fear narrative and try and find a place of peace and comfort, it's like, okay, what can you do to best prepare yourself so you can bring more comfort to yourself? Do you have an evacuation plan for your family? Do you have, say, bags packed ready at the door? Do you have the people that you're going to get in contact with if you do have to go? Do you know where you can go? What are your options? Um, and those are just some ideas, but it's like what things can bring you peace
Mhm.
or a bit of grounding so you're not in the whirl, you can kind of step
Totally.
back from it
Yeah,
and observe it. And
I
it
love
doesn't
that.
mean you get pulled in, and it doesn't mean you're just like, oh, everything's perfect now, it's burning, but I'm fine. It's not that, but it's about finding a piece where you can catch your breath
Mhm.
beyond or under that fear narrative. Because if you just sit there and you read, there's a fire here and a fire here and a fire here, and this is evacuating, and you stay up here, well, when you're up here, it removes your ability to critically think,
Mhm.
which allows you, when you can critically think, allows you to find your peace point, find your smart next right options, create your plans of whatever. So, whatever the fear thing is, step back from it. And what aspects can you control and what can you not? And you focus on the ones you can.
And what are the thoughts that are creeping in that you don't even need? Being like, I don't even know where this one came from.
Mhm.
And like zero control. I can have zero control of this. This is a weed in my garden, you know? Cool. Thank you for anything else. What else did they say?
Um, then, okay, so the other one too is for some people, and this isn't for everybody. So for some people with the fear narrative, it's stepping back and allowing that space to critically think. But there's going to be a select few people where it's about stepping into.
Mm,
So they're being called to step into the fear and what can they do to help change the narrative from going into it. Other
mhm,
people, it's going to come back, but for some, it's going to go in to either, share their voice about an experience, share their thoughts or their expertise about a thing. Some people are going to be called in to walk into the fear for a reason. But if you are not feeling that direct pull to walk in and, speak your thing, stake your claim, stand your ground, whatever the thing is, then your call is to step back and organize what you can.
mm.
Can
I
I
love
give an example of that? Because that is what my experience was on Tuesday. So
okay.
as I was having these fears and these anxieties, it was about the loss of my dog. I love him. He's old. He's a sweet little senior. He's been having some health issues. Overall, he's okay. But I was like worked up, and we're going on a couple of vacations coming up, and there's all these things going on. And I was just in my brain about it, and I could not handle myself. Like I just could not. And after I had taken them for a walk, and it was pretty hot, like hotter than I realized. And so then he was really slow. And so I was sitting on the couch when I got home, and I was sitting with my two dogs, and I just broke down, and I could feel this anxiety in me. And I was like, what do I do with this? Because I can't function like this. And what came up when I really kind of tuned into myself was I've had a lot of loss in the last 3 years of my life, like a lot. And there are aspects of that loss that I have dealt with. There are aspects of that loss that I realize I have not dealt with, and I am holding it. And it is creating more fear the moment. And then these energies are like amplifying it and blowing it up. So in these moments of like, I'm terrified he's going to die. Okay, well, he's 12, almost 13. He's an old dog. The reality is that could happen at some point, right? It will at some point, unless I figure out a way to make him immortal, which we're working on. But I can't be afraid of that because it's gonna happen, right? That's the one universal law we can at this point anyways believe in, is that we are, you know, we eventually leave the 3D world and our spirit leaves. When I sat with the fact of like, I'm starting to become terrified of loss, even though spiritually, emotionally, I can look at loss in a very spiritual way, in a human way. I've dealt with a lot of the grief around the loss of my father. I kind of am in all these different places with it, but there are threads of it that are still attached to the fear of it's going to sneak up on me. It's going to hit me like a train out of nowhere, like it did with my dad. And I'm not going to have any control, and it's just going to blow everything up. And I don't want to go there again. That's too hard. And so what I got in that moment was just sit in it. And I sobbed for like 45 minutes. I cried and I cried and I cried. And I sat in the grief and I sat in the loss and I sat in the feelings of what is it going to be like to lose him one day? And what is that experience going to be like? And what can I do while I have him so that I'm not also putting all of this energy into him and his experience of like, whatever. I also, with working with Daphne, one of the Avalon Journey guides, she's been supporting some healing for him because he has had a few medical issues. I had this, you know, understanding of he's suffering from a loss because we lost one of our other dogs in January. And they were like two peas. They were the seniors. They loved each other. He was grieving. Like he had that energy of sadness. And I could see that physically from a human perspective. He was not the same after Jada died. And so I had to be called into it and pulled into it to experience what I was holding. The anxiety the rest of the day around like, what am I going to do with trips? And if he stays at my mom's house, he can't wake up. Like I was just, that was the energy of, okay, that's fear. That's not something I can figure out right now. It's also not even a problem right now. Take a breath.
You went in and you stepped out.
I went in, and then the other kind of anxiety, fear took over, and I had to disconnect from it. So, and you know, like looking back, I can be like, gosh, Elyse, like you can kind of separate and see the way that the brain was working and all of those fears and the energies. But if I had just avoided, maybe I wouldn't have come to that realization and held space for myself to grieve a little bit more or to process or come to the understanding of, oh gosh, I do still have some fear around loss and I need to support myself through that. And what does that look like? If I don't have space in my time, in my life to hold that for myself, how am I going to ever support myself through it? And, you know, I think it's also really interesting that all of this is happening as the world is opening up. Because I think there's this desire for like, hey, we've got the green light. Let's all get out of the house and let's all go do these things now that, you know, COVID is getting better and and our provinces open up and your guys' province is opening up and these things are starting to happen. And it's interesting that it's like we're being given this other challenge of with COVID, it was okay, how can you, if you are stuck within the confines of your life, what does that look like for you? Like, can you find peace and space in that? And if not, how can we reevaluate? And I heard so many people say like, I've been asking for this space for so long. I've been wanting quiet time in my life. I've been wanting all of these things. And then now what's happening is we've had enough of that. It's been almost 2 years or a year and a half of that. Okay, let's blow the doors open and go back to living life and getting out there. And I think it's about doing that in a way where we're balanced and we're not just like 0 to 100 going
like overexposed, right?
Exactly. Because
I feel so vulnerable and exposed.
Yeah. And then now we're in this place where we still need that space and time. Like we can't just go back to the way we were of fully booked and busy and out and about. Even for me, like there's certain appointments and things that I'm still opting to choose to do online because I don't want to spend the time driving 45 minutes to an appointment. That just doesn't feel like it serves me. So I think it's finding that balance and where we can still creating space while not keeping ourselves completely shut in as well. Because I think we need that interaction too.
Yeah. Wow. Such a precipice right now, right? Such a precipice. So what do you guys think? So we know to like step out or step in, depending on the call to fear. What else do you think we can, or what else do you guys intuit or get from spirit that we can do as we maneuver even just this next week? Because who knows what it'll be by next week, honestly.
Yeah, I think a big thing is surrendering, and allowing yourself the space to not know and to
Mm,
not have control over it. It's okay. Give yourself a little bit more love in not knowing,
yeah.
right? Grounding your heart into however you want to picture it, into Earth's heart, and feel like one day at a time. Today, what do I need? Today, I'm going to give myself a little bit more space in whichever capacity,
Mhm.
instead of having to figure it all out, because you're not going to figure it all out. It's not going to be figure outable in a day. So just take time.
Mhm.
Yeah, also I would say too is um, really embrace the idea of rolling with it, because the amount of variability and change is going to change almost every day, every couple days. We've talked about this before. When I tune in, it seems to be getting faster. So it's almost like you were saying, Elyse, like one day you're good and the next day you feel like, oh man, I'm off. It's like honor the day, like you're saying, Lisa, honor how you feel and allow it to change. So if you were good yesterday and you felt like you had everything together and today you don't, it doesn't mean you failed anything. That's just where you're at today.
Totally.
I think if we can just roll, like be like what do they say? Um shoot, I can't even think of it, but there's a saying about like being like water so you can flow around things instead of being rigid.
Right.
Like try and be water.
Yeah. That is helpful though, because it's like if you go into it without knowing anything, but just saying, my intention is going to be that I'm going to just roll with it, whatever comes up. Because then you take off this huge amount of anxiety that you're holding on to, trying to control, like trying to control a wave, right? I don't know how it's going to go. I don't know how it's going to be, but right now, this is how I feel. And my intention is just going to be, I'm going to try to roll with it.
Yeah,
That's a
absolutely.
challenging thing for a lot of people, but
Mhm.
like, what else are you going to do? Right? You can say, okay, I'm going to have this, and my schedule, this, and that makes me feel safe. And then when that doesn't work, all of a sudden you're like massively exposed and anxious. And what does this mean? Well, it means that you actually can't be in total control. So what can you control? Again, take a step back. What can you control? Intention to just roll with it a bit.
Mhm.
So that's our focus this week.
Yeah.
Roll with it.
There's I think coming in around control, and Ginette, you were talking about like using the example of forest fires, but really with anything, figuring out what is within our scope of control and holding on to those pieces. But what's coming in is that part of the lesson in this for us, and I think part of the reason, and there's lots of reasons why I think the humanity and the planet and the world is the way it is right now, or why we're at this point. But I think as a human race, and even as intuitives and people who are connected within themselves, we thought we had a lot more control than we actually did.
Mm.
And I almost get the sense of this is a bit of a reality check of like, we never did have this control.
Totally.
We thought we did, and maybe things were kind of structured and it was like, okay, we'll go along with it, and spirit, universe, world, whatever, earth is like, yeah, okay, we'll see if they figure this out. And then we've kind of taken it to this point of like, that desire to control has led us to make a lot of decisions in humanity that really didn't end up becoming for the greater good, like it was
No,
intended, right?
we stopped listening.
When you
We
think
stopped
about like
listening.
climate change and everything, exactly, it's like it was all about this way of controlling how we lived and the experiences that we had and the lives that we created for ourselves, and da 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 da, when really like that wasn't it was within our control, but to the point where we took it too far. And now it's like, okay, you want to see how much control you have?
Mm-hmm.
You have control of yourself and what's within that, what those little actions and pieces are. The rest, we
I
don't.
think a lot of time the control comes as like a compensatory strategy, right? They're trying as to keep them safe, right? It's a safety thing too. It's an ego.
Back to fear.
Yeah.
Which is what Ginette's guides were talking about. So it's like, it's interesting kind of seeing all those pieces come together as like, as sometimes I kind of feel like right now it's like a little bit of a like, okay, well, sit and think about how much control you have in your life And
practice rolling with it.
yeah, and practice rolling with it and being really real with yourself about what actually is within your control. Can I pack a bag if I need to get out of here? Yep, I can do that. Okay, check.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that gives us a lot of little tidbits this week. And I'd love to hear if this resonates with anybody, please comment on our YouTube page, but also join us at Avalon Spirit Facebook page and strike up conversation and anything. If there's stuff that you guys want us to touch on or talk about or sharing experiences about this really helps too. So if this did resonate in any way, please let us know. And if you watch this and thought, somebody's really dealing with this and you think that they benefit from hearing any of it, share it. And we can kind of feel like we're really together in this sense of not knowing this together. So
Yeah.
thanks, ladies, for such a good week and a good talk today.
Yeah, thank you.
Any last little bits to leave them with for the week?
Don't stop retrieving.
Don't stop retrieving. That's it.
Awesome.
Okay.
Okay, have a good week.
Bye, guys.